Today I'm going to reveal something that perhaps no one has ever explained to you this clearly. Because if you thought that the sexuality of mature women follows the same rules as in youth, I can assure you, you're far from the truth. What comes next will change the way you look at relationships, and it might even spark a new level of admiration for the woman by your side. This is the kind of knowledge that isn't taught anywhere, but I promise you, once you know it, you'll never see them the same way again. My name is Celia, and if this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because what you're about to discover in this video will not only surprise you, but it could also transform how you understand pleasure, desire, and true intimate connection. Let's get started. Number 1. The act doesn't end with the orgasm. Over the years, many things change in a woman's life, and the way she enjoys intimacy is no exception. One of the most surprising revelations for many is that reaching the climax for a mature woman is no longer the center of the experience. Sure, it's still an important moment, but it's no longer the ultimate goal. This might come as a surprise to those who have always thought that the climax is the only thing that matters. What's interesting here is that, according to recent studies, many women in their mature years report that they enjoy the journey toward that peak much more than the moment itself. Simply put, what they truly value is everything that happens before. The lingering touches, the looks, the emotional connection, and the gestures that allow them to feel a deep sense of intimacy. It's as if the entire path toward the climax, every small detail, holds as much value as the climax itself. This shift in focus also brings a very practical lesson for you. It's not about rushing to get there. On the contrary, what truly makes a difference is how the moment is shared, how every second of that intimacy is nurtured. And if you think about it, this not only enhances her experience, but it can also change yours. Allowing pleasure to last longer, without the pressure of reaching the end as quickly as possible, opens the door to a much deeper connection. It's an invitation to savor the process without rushing, paying attention to those little details that in the end create unforgettable memories. Number 2, secret fantasies are more alive than ever. It's often believed that fantasies fade with time, but the truth is, for many mature women, fantasies are more alive than ever. In fact, this is when they feel freer to explore those desires they may not have allowed themselves to in their youth. What's interesting is that, far from being something hidden or secret, these fantasies can become an important part of their sexuality. A good friend once told me that after many years together, his partner began sharing some of her most intimate fantasies with him. He was surprised to realize that she had never talked about these desires when they were younger. What happens is that, over time, many women feel less pressure to meet external expectations and more freedom to connect with what truly excites them. Without the insecurities of youth, the mind opens to new possibilities. And here's the lesson for you. If a mature woman shares her fantasies with you, it's not something to be taken lightly. Instead of feeling intimidated or insecure, it's an opportunity to know her on a much deeper level. Listening carefully, asking without judgment, and maybe even sharing your own desires can create an incredibly strong connection. At the end of the day, fantasies don't always need to be fulfilled, but simply sharing them can be a gesture of trust that enriches the relationship in unexpected ways. Number 3, they discover multiple orgasms. When you think about intimacy, you probably don't imagine that mature women are more likely to experience multiple orgasms, but here's the surprising truth. Many discover that with age, their ability to feel pleasure is amplified. What once seemed like a myth or something unattainable becomes very real and possible for them. What happens is that, over the years, a mature woman gets to know her body better. She's no longer trying to impress or meet anyone else's expectations. She knows what she likes, what works for her, and she feels more confident communicating it. That confidence reflects in her ability to relax and enjoy without pressure, which often leads to experiencing not just one climax, but several. Additionally, by having a more relaxed and mindful pace, she gives herself the chance to extend pleasure without rushing. So, what can you take away from this? The secret isn't in speed or intensity, but in control and communication. When both partners are in sync without rushing, and she feels comfortable and connected with you, her ability to enjoy multiplies. Paying attention to her cues and giving her time to respond without hurrying her can make the experience much richer for both of you. Remember, shared pleasure is a journey, not a race, and for her, that journey often holds many more surprises than you might expect. Number 4, they enjoy power and switching roles. One of the biggest surprises many mature women discover over time is how much they enjoy taking control in intimacy, even reversing traditional roles. For them, this stage of life not only brings more confidence, but also a sense of power and freedom they might not have allowed themselves to explore before. Think of it like a dance. For years, they may have been led or followed what they thought was the expected rhythm, but now they choose to set the pace, to decide where the dance is going. This shift not only excites them, but can also bring a new dynamic to the relationship, where roles become more fluid and less predictable. So, how can you embrace this change? Let her take control from time to time and enjoy the moment. Allowing her to lead doesn't just give you a break, it's also a way to connect on a deeper level. This doesn't mean you lose your place, but rather that you give yourself the chance to discover what truly excites her. Sometimes the greatest act of trust is knowing when to hand over control and see where that moment takes you together. In the end, shared pleasure becomes much more thrilling when both are willing to explore and switch up traditional roles. Number 5, they fantasize about younger men. You might be surprised to hear this, but many mature women develop a curious attraction to younger men. It's not just about looks or physical energy. What really draws them in is that freshness, vitality, and spontaneity that younger men often bring. For them, it's like a breath of fresh air compared to the routine or more established relationships. However, this attraction isn't always about seeking a younger partner for a relationship. Often, it's simply a fantasy that allows them to feel that spark of novelty, a way to reconnect with the part of themselves that still craves adventure and excitement. What's interesting is how this fantasy becomes a tool for revitalizing their desire and intimate life. So, what can you do with this information? You don't need to compete with the image of a younger man. What you can take from this is the invitation to be more spontaneous, to show that energy that sometimes gets lost in routine. Being playful, laughing more, surprising her with something unexpected, all of this has a much deeper impact than you might think. By doing this, you can bring that sense of freshness into your relationship without needing to be someone else, just by showing a lighter, more open version of yourself. Number 6, they feel drawn to exploring open relationships. Something many wouldn't expect is that, at a certain age, some mature women start feeling attracted to the idea of open or more flexible relationships. This doesn't necessarily mean that they all want to act on it, but what does happen is that they begin to question the traditional relationship models they've followed for years. The curiosity to explore new forms of relationships may arise, often accompanied by greater self-confidence and a desire for emotional freedom. What opens up here is an opportunity for conversation. Discussing the possibility of open relationships doesn't have to be a taboo or threatening topic. Instead, it can be a way to explore what each person needs and desires within the relationship. Sexologist Justin Lehmiller has noted that this curiosity tends to increase with age, partly because mature women, feeling more secure in themselves, allow themselves to think about less conventional ways of connecting with their partner or others. For you, the advice is simple. If this topic ever comes up in conversation, don't take it as an attack on your current relationship, but as an opportunity to discuss what both of you want. Not all open relationships are pursued, but the mere fact that she feels comfortable sharing her deepest thoughts is already a sign of trust. So instead of fearing it, use it as a chance to get to know each other better and understand what she's truly seeking in this new phase of her life. Number 7, they explore tantric sex and prolonged pleasure. As the years go by, many mature women discover a new kind of connection in intimacy, tantric sex. The focus of Tantra isn't on immediate pleasure, but on prolonged enjoyment, where breathing, eye contact, and mindful attention to the moment become the main elements. What's fascinating about this practice is that it centers on savoring every moment, making the pleasure deeper and more extended, without worrying about time or the end result. I learned this from a friend who, after years of more conventional relationships, decided to explore Tantra with her partner. She told me the experience was transformative. It wasn't just about seeking the climax, but about feeling every small touch, every shared breath. She described those encounters as a way to rediscover her body, her energy, and her connection with her partner, allowing her to enjoy intimacy in a much more fulfilling way. So, how can you apply this to your life? You don't have to become an expert in Tantra overnight, but you can take a lesson from this concept, slow down, pay more attention to the little details, and enjoy the moment without worrying about what comes next. Try something as simple as prolonged eye contact, synchronizing your breath, or touching her with more mindfulness. These small changes can completely transform the experience for both of you, taking the connection to a whole new level. Number 8, they develop a new sensitivity in their skin. As the years pass, a mature woman's body changes in ways you might not expect. One of those fascinating transformations is the new sensitivity many experience in their skin. What might not have caught their attention before can now become an unexpected source of pleasure. Areas that were once neutral, like the lower back, the nape of the neck, or even the wrists, can become incredibly sensitive to touch. This happens because, with maturity, the body rediscovers itself. Hormones, physical changes, and above all, a greater awareness of their own body awaken these new sensations. It's as if the skin, having lived through many experiences, now responds differently, seeking new stimuli in places that previously seemed irrelevant. What can you take from this? It's time to explore. Don't stick to what you've always done, or the areas you thought were the only ones that mattered. Experiment with soft touches, massages, or gentle strokes in parts of the body you may have overlooked before. You'll discover that these small gestures can have a big impact on intimacy and create an even deeper connection. Number 9, they pleasure themselves more frequently. As mature women gain confidence in their bodies and desires, something changes in their relationship with personal pleasure. They feel more comfortable exploring themselves, and this not only becomes common, but also an important part of their sexual life. Masturbation, which may have been surrounded by taboos or insecurities in their youth, is now seen as a way to better understand their own bodies and keep their sexuality alive in a more free and relaxed way. This shift is closely tied to independence and self-awareness. By exploring themselves more often, they learn what they like, what stimulates them, and how to respond to their own needs without solely relying on a partner. This not only enhances their intimate life, but also allows them to communicate their desires more effectively when with someone else. So, what does this mean for you? You shouldn't feel intimidated or view her personal pleasure as competition. On the contrary, it's an opportunity to learn. Pay attention when she talks about what she enjoys, observe how she connects with her own body, and use that information to improve your connection. When a woman knows what she likes and shares it with you, the result is always a more fulfilling and satisfying experience for both. If you're enjoying the video so far and feel like you're uncovering secrets you hadn't noticed before about a mature woman, don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button to support this content. Stay with me until the end, because the most revealing parts are yet to come. For those truly committed to understanding the psychology behind women, I have 2 final bonuses that could completely change the way you see these situations. And tell me, which country are you listening from? I'd love to know. Let's continue. Number 10, They communicate directly about what they like. One of the great advantages of maturity is that women become much more direct about what they like and don't like in intimacy. They're no longer afraid to say what they want or to ask for it clearly. Experience has taught them that open communication is key to fully enjoying themselves, and this is one of the great secrets many discover over time. Instead of hinting or expecting you to guess what they want, a mature woman will tell you straight. For them, pleasure and connection don't need to rely on misunderstandings or assumptions. This not only makes the experience smoother and more satisfying, but it also takes away the pressure of having to get it right without any clues. The practical advice here is simple. Don't be alarmed if she talks openly about what she likes or what isn't working. On the contrary, see it as an opportunity to improve and adjust to her needs. At the end of the day, that honesty is an open door to a deeper connection and a more fulfilling, intimate life. When both of you feel free to express what you want, the relationship strengthens and shared pleasure multiplies. Number 11, they have fewer inhibitions about vocal pleasure. As mature women become more comfortable with themselves, one of the barriers that tends to fall is the inhibition around the sounds they make during pleasure. Many discover that at this age, expressing what they feel through moans or sighs becomes much more natural and liberating. They're no longer worried about sounding right or holding back. For them, the freedom to let those sounds out becomes a fundamental part of the experience. It's important to understand that these sounds aren't just a manifestation of pleasure. They're also a form of communication. They're giving you clues about what they enjoy, what excites them, and what makes them feel more connected to you. By being more expressive, they allow you to know when something is working, when to intensify a touch, or when to slow down. So, what can you do with this? Don't fear those sounds, and don't take them lightly. Listen to them, interpret them, and let them guide you in your intimacy. For them, it's a sign of freedom, trust in the moment, and a deep connection with you. Embrace that energy to synchronize with what truly makes her feel good. Together, you can enjoy a much more authentic and liberating experience. Number 12, they discover new erogenous zones. As time passes, the body changes, and one of the most interesting surprises many mature women discover is that new erogenous zones begin to awaken. Areas of the body that once didn't seem particularly sensitive, like the inner arms, shoulders, or lower back, can now become key points of pleasure. It's as if their body redraws its erogenous map, inviting them to explore new sensations. This happens partly due to hormonal changes, but also because of a greater openness to exploration. They no longer feel the need to limit themselves to the usual spots. Instead, they allow themselves to discover new pleasures, adding an entirely new dimension to their intimate experiences. For you, the lesson is clear. Don't stick to the familiar. Experiment, try different types of touches in areas you might not have considered before. Something as simple as a soft caress on the nape of the neck or a kiss on the belly button could awaken unexpected sensations. When you take the time to explore, you not only learn more about her body, but also create an atmosphere of shared intimacy and curiosity. And for a mature woman, that's one of the greatest gifts you can offer. Number 13, they want to do it in unusual places. Over time, it's easy to fall into the comfort of routine, and intimacy is no exception. But for many mature women, the desire to break free from that monotony becomes a source of excitement. They seek to step outside the usual, change the setting, and turn the ordinary into something new. That's why unusual places like the kitchen, the car, or even the shower become attractive options to add a touch of adventure. Changing locations offers more than just a physical novelty. It's about the thrill of the unexpected. Doing something different can ignite in them a sense of playfulness, youth, and spontaneity, that spark that sometimes dims over the years. It's a reminder that pleasure doesn't always have to follow the same rules, and that sometimes the unpredictable is what reignites desire. Imagine a quiet drive suddenly turning into a moment of intimacy in the car. or a relaxed afternoon becoming something more when you decide to be spontaneous in the living room. You don't need grand plans, just the willingness to surprise her. For a mature woman, these spontaneous gestures can bring a renewed connection, reminding her that desire doesn't have to be predictable. Number 14, greater awareness of rhythm. For many mature women, speed and force are no longer what they seek in intimacy. As the years go by, something subtler but far more powerful takes center stage: rhythm. Here, being mindful of the rhythm becomes an art. It's no longer about hurried or intense movements, but about finding a balance between depth, gentleness, and consistency. This shift is closely tied to the sensitivity they develop over the years. They learn to enjoy the control that a slower, intentional rhythm offers, where every movement carries meaning and purpose. A slow, controlled back and forth allows them to feel more fully, without distractions or rushing. How can you apply this? The key is to leave the rush behind, listen to her body, and find the rhythm that truly brings her pleasure. It might be tempting to speed up, but often what they seek is a more mindful, sensory-aligned movement. As you find that rhythm, you'll see how both of you enter into a deeper connection, where patience and control can elevate the pleasure to another level. Number 15, erotic content for women is gaining ground. Today, erotic content has evolved, and more mature women are finding something in pornography that speaks to them differently than traditional options. It's not just about the visuals, it's about seeking something more emotional, with a narrative, connection, and rhythm that aligns with their desires. Porn geared toward women is gaining ground because it offers an alternative that allows them to connect with their fantasies in a more intimate and less mechanical way. This type of content focuses more on mutual pleasure, foreplay, and an experience that's closer to the reality of relationships that women value. For them, it's less about immediate action and more about the tension that builds throughout the scene, where details and emotions play a key role. What does this mean for you? It could be an opportunity to explore this kind of content together. If your partner enjoys this more emotional and subtle approach, don't hesitate to open a conversation about it. Ask her what she likes about this type of content, and use that information to enrich your own intimacy. It's not just about what you watch, but how you interpret it together that can bring a new spark to the relationship. Sharing these types of experiences can be a doorway to exploring fantasies and opening up to new ways of enjoying pleasure. Number 16, the value of erotic literature. For many mature women, the written word can be a far more powerful source of arousal than images. Erotic literature, with its detailed descriptions and ability to stir the imagination, becomes a space where they can explore their deepest fantasies without the rush or limitations of the visual world. What draws them to this type of reading isn't just the explicit content, but the way the story unfolds, creating a slow-building tension that allows pleasure to extend beyond the physical. This type of literature offers something unique, the chance to dive into emotional and erotic situations where the narrative is just as important as the climax. It allows them to imagine themselves in different scenarios without everything being as direct as in other mediums. It's a slower, more mental seduction, giving them time to savor every detail. What can you do with this information? If she enjoys this kind of reading, it can be a great opportunity to learn more about what emotionally stimulates her. Ask her what kind of stories she likes to read, or even consider reading a passage together that caught her attention. Sharing these moments of erotic reading can open a space for conversation, foreplay, and exploring fantasies in a more intimate, connected way. For many mature women, this type of mental connection can be the first step toward a richer and more meaningful sexual experience. Number 17, the enjoyment of late-in-life oral. As they mature, many women discover that oral sex takes on a new level of importance in their intimate lives, what I refer to as late-in-life oral. It's no longer just a quick part of foreplay or something done hastily. For many, oral becomes a complete experience in itself. As their bodies change and become more sensitive, this type of stimulation takes on a significance it may not have had before. The enjoyment of late-in-life oral is rooted in attention, patience, and, most importantly, rhythm. The focus here isn't on rushing to a finish, but on dedication and being present in each moment. Many mature women especially appreciate this kind of stimulation because it allows them to relax and experience pleasure at a slower pace, without the pressure of immediacy. How can you apply this? Start by creating a comfortable, trusting environment. Take your time to understand how her body responds. Every woman is different, and what works in one situation may not in another. The key is to pay attention to her reactions, her breathing, her movements, the sounds she makes. Don't focus on the end goal. Instead, concentrate on how she feels in each second. Ask her or observe how she likes it, as communication is often the key. By maintaining a gentle and controlled rhythm, you can give her a much deeper and more pleasurable experience. Number 18, clitoral sensitivity changes. As women mature, one of the areas that experiences the most significant change is the sensitivity of their clitoris. This small but powerful point of pleasure doesn't lose its impact with age, but it can become more sensitive than before. These changes, often linked to menopause and hormonal fluctuations, can intensify sensations, but they also require a different approach to intimacy. The key is understanding that the clitoris may respond differently. What once felt comfortable might now feel too intense if not approached gently. This doesn't mean pleasure is diminished, quite the opposite. It can become even deeper when given the right attention. The trick lies in how it's touched, with more delicacy and patience, adapting to the new needs her body demands. How can you put this into practice? The most important thing is to adjust your approach. Instead of rushing or applying too much pressure, start with soft touches, allowing her to guide you towards what feels most pleasurable. Remember, communication is key. Asking her how she feels and if she enjoys the rhythm you're following is the best way to ensure a pleasurable experience. Bonus 1. Sexual appetite is cyclical but still intense. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're about to discover two of the most fascinating secrets I saved for the end. These bonuses are for those truly committed to understanding the sexuality of a mature woman. They're the details that, when understood well, will allow you to see intimacy from a new perspective. The first secret relates to sexual appetite. Many think that with age, desire fades, but that's far from the truth. What happens is that, like everything in the body, desire becomes cyclical. Sometimes, interest may seem to wane, only to return with an intensity that will surprise you. From my own experience, I can tell you that these cycles don't make desire any less strong. In fact, when that appetite returns, it can spark a fire that burns even stronger than before. It's a natural rhythm, and if you can recognize those moments, they can be perfect opportunities to reconnect deeply. It's like a wave. Sometimes it ebbs, but when it flows back, it does so with the strength of an ocean that hasn't calmed, just waited for the perfect moment to surge. And that's exactly how it feels, a desire that returns with even more passion and intensity. And if any women are listening to me, they won't deny it. How many times have we felt that, after a period of calm, sexual appetite comes back with a force we didn't even expect? That's how the body works, and that's how the fire stays lit throughout the years. This cycle is natural, and understanding it can open the door to greater enjoyment without the pressure to maintain constant desire. The important thing to remember is that although sexual appetite may be cyclical, when it's there, it's just as intense, passionate, and sometimes even more than before. Bonus 2. Less taboo around backdoor pleasure. The last secret I have for you is one of those topics that, over the years, many mature women begin to view differently. I'm talking about backdoor sex. What may have once been a taboo or surrounded by uncertainties, for some women at this stage of life, becomes a more open and less judgmental possibility. With time and experience, there's a greater willingness to explore and enjoy new forms of pleasure, free from the social restrictions that might have felt heavier in the past. One of the most mentioned benefits, supported by studies like the one published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, is that many women report feeling a greater sense of control and connection with their bodies. Part of this comes from the fact that this kind of experience requires a deeper level of communication and trust between partners. And that's key. Communication is essential. It's not just about the act itself, but the level of safety and trust both partners must build to make it enjoyable. Another benefit, mentioned in the same study, is that exploring different erogenous zones can intensify the overall sexual experience. The release of taboos over time allows mature women to explore their bodies with more freedom and enjoy forms of pleasure they may never have considered in their youth. And this is not just physical, but emotional as well. As the taboo fades, the possibility of rediscovering the body from a different, more open and confident perspective emerges. The message here is clear. Enjoyment doesn't have to be limited to what we've always known. As prejudices fade and the body is rediscovered, new doors can open, providing richer and more complete experiences. If anything changes with maturity, it's the ability to explore without the barriers of what should be, allowing one to fully embrace every possibility. We've reached the end, but before you go, I want you to think about something. Each secret we've shared today is not just a revelation about female sexuality, but an invitation to more deeply understand that mature woman in your life. Understanding that sexuality evolves, that barriers fall, and that desire changes form is only the beginning. What really matters is how you use this knowledge to connect in a more authentic, respectful, and enriching way with her. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's a journey that can transform how you both see and feel about each other if you're willing to listen and discover together what makes your hearts beat. Over the years, experiences accumulate, but so do the opportunities to explore new paths of pleasure and connection. My name is Celia, and I want this to be a space of wisdom, where we can talk about these important topics with honesty and respect. The goal here is to improve our lives, not just in intimacy, but in every corner of our day-to-day. Because in the end, everything we learn and apply to ourselves echoes in our relationships, leading to greater personal and shared well-being. If this is your first time on my channel, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future topics. And if you've made it this far, it's because you value your personal growth and the connection with those you love. That deserves all my respect. So, to know who's committed and made it to the end, comment with the phrase, "I love wisdom," and tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to hear from you and know where in the world we're sharing this journey together. And before you go, share this video with someone who you think might need it. Maybe there's someone in your life who could benefit from hearing these words and discovering a new perspective. Because sometimes, a simple piece of advice can make a huge difference. See you in the next video.